introduce our next speaker, Allyson Witherspoon, the Global Chief Marketing Officer of Nissan. What a journey she's been on. A female marketing leader in a traditionally male-dominated industry. Her career has literally taken her all over the world, from Nashville, Tennessee, to Yokohama, Japan, via Amsterdam and New York City. She can share a thing or two about what it means to move outside of your comfort zone, to overcome barriers, and to be prepared to learn. I expect this may be actually one of the sources of her phenomenal success in driving the world-leading innovative marketing that underpins Nissan's global success. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Allyson Witherspoon.
It's always so weird to see your photo on a big screen like that. Hi, I'm Allyson. Thank you. I am a car nerd. I'm also a marketing nerd. And I have been marketing automotive brands for more than 2 decades, which is kind of embarrassing to say, but this is what I love. And what I love is really how things have evolved and all of the innovation has taken place. And it's such an honor to be with all of you today. And I hope that we have a good discussion. What I really want to talk about is I want to make the case for the importance of creativity. And you heard Marcel talk about it earlier this morning, but creativity with a purpose. And we have so many tools. We have so many things. Our job as marketers has never been more difficult. And again, at the end of the day, what will really make impact and drive business and brand growth for all of us is going to be creativity. Well, let's talk about what we're experiencing. In 60 seconds, this is all of the data and all of the actions that are going to be processed. 747 stays are booked on Airbnb. 6.3 million searches on Google. 694,000 reels are posted. $436,000 in peer-to-peer transactions on Venmo. 6,944 prompts on ChatGPT. 122,000 orders on DoorDash. And Tinder, almost 7,000 matches. Is that happening right now? I'm just curious, like, safe space, totally safe space. That's a shitload of data. What do we do with that? Because we're seeing so many actions. What do we do with all of that as marketers? Maybe we're going another minute for Tinder, more Tinder. The amount of data that we have today for today's marketers, it's really something that our colleagues in the past could only dream of. It used to be kind of very simple. There were minimal channels. But we have more and more data that's available to us as marketers. Not only do we have that data, but we have technology that is coming out. It seems like there's a new trend every year that's kind of the key focus of everything that we need to learn. And this technology is what's enabling us to access our data faster and at more speed. Then you have, I don't know if you've heard about AI. I think we might have had a couple of discussions about it. It's making it even more contextually relevant, better organized. Again, still that's the dream, but this is another piece of technology that is going to help enable us as marketers to really capitalize on all of the information that we have out there, all of the information that consumers are giving to us, and the actions and the signals that they're providing. Okay, so we know a lot of stuff, so we just make an ad, right? It's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. And the reality is that it is not that simple at all. All of this data means nothing if we don't know what to do with it. And most importantly, if we're just reproducing it in the same media formats that have been around for decades. So what is the value of all of this new input if the output is still the same? And then you have all of the different channels where consumers can engage and discover your brands. So we can't tell stories. We're storytellers. This is a room of storytellers. But we can't tell stories the same way that happened when I first started my career, or even 5 years ago. The landscape is completely different today and has so many dimensions, from media consumption to influencers to work from home, which kind of, again, that was another transition of how things changed. And whatever is popular, whatever those trends are, whatever that behavior is, it's popular on multiple platforms. So now I have so much data, I have all this technology that enables that data, and then I have thousands of ways, and let's not forget, millions of ad formats that we have to then customize for on multiple platforms. So 68% of people say they watch videos about a subject they are into in multiple different formats. It used to be just format, or short format, then it was 6-second ads, then it was like 30-minute ads, then it's podcasts and live streams. We have to be able to find consumers on all of this. I'm exhausted kind of thinking about it, to be honest. And then trust is also moving away from brands. So then on top of that, creators, influencers, they are who consumers trust. They're the new agents. They trust people more than they trust corporations, traditional media. And it's just, and 54% of people say they would rather prefer to watch creators breaking down a major event than the actual event itself. So even the media, our big media buys that we don't have the eyeballs that we used to have. 64% of people would consider switching brands when a product is promoted by a creator that they follow. Let's remember, these creators are also talking to multiple brands, and they have a lot of these relationship deals. The average social media user logs into 7 platforms a month. I was actually surprised by this. I thought it was actually a little bit more, and then I realized it's 7 different platforms. And think about what you've logged in today. So again, this is where we have to capture. We're supposed to be driving demand, driving return on investment. We have all of this data, all this technology, all of these places where we have to meet people, and then we have to, it's going to be different. Our ad formats are going to be completely different. And then attention can last seconds or hours depending on what that platform is. So there are more options for people. They have more freedom. They are definitely in the driver's seat in how they want to engage with brands, which poses a huge challenge for us as marketers. And that's why upskilling, there's been a kind of a constant discussion over the last week about how upskilling is so important. So now we make 1,000 ads, right? That's easy. Who did this? We did. We tried to do this. It was impossible. We thought we have all this data, we have DCO, we can make everything contextually relevant, we have all this audience information, now we just make 1,000 ads. We can automate ads, but the impact of creativity is still what is the most important thing. If you just have generic things that are running around, how are you going to differentiate yourselves? You have, in the automotive space, we have many, many competitors. It's a highly considered purchase, the second most considered purchase that a person has. How can we break through if we have to create thousands of ads that are on 7 different platforms in multiple different formats with all this data that everyone else has some access to? So when data comes from everywhere and attention is spread everywhere, where does creativity live? Creativity influences us and our connection to human essences. And Marcel talked about this as well. It's creative with a purpose. How do we create that emotional connection? And how do we make sure that we do that in an impactful way with a business purpose that is going to have a disproportionate impact on people that are shopping our products and our goods? Creative is the #1 dominant ROI driver across all media platforms. You can have the most efficient media buy. You can have the highest ROI, kind of based on marketing versus incentive spend that's specific to us in the automotive industry. But at the end of the day, what will impact human beings and consumers is actually the message that you serve up and provide to them. So #1. And this is by Nielsen, so 100% credible, right? And then let's talk about quantity and quality. Data makes us think about quantity, but we can't forget that quality is the key. We are all under so much pressure to do things faster, more efficiently, hit all these platforms, but quality, again, cannot be forgotten in this process. And creativity really is about quality and craft. We have so many tools that can help that now. So we want to identify these human needs and wants, build distinctive messaging based on our brand's positioning, relevant stories for each of our consumers and the different segments that we have. And don't forget, if you have multiple products that you're doing, you need to differentiate across your own product portfolio. And we have to do that in a way that allows consumers to connect emotionally with our brand. So I want to take you through a few examples of how we're doing it at Nissan with a focus specifically on electrification, which obviously there's a lot of buzz around electric vehicles, but in the spirit of sustainability and how we want to advance that, not only for us as a brand, but also probably us as a marketer, I think this is really interesting. All right. Last year, we made a 4-hour ad. 4 hours. And the reason why it was 4 hours is because that is the amount of time that you can go on one charge in the new Nissan Ariya. People are willing to spend a lot of time if it's about something that they're passionate about. They are willing to engage with you as a brand if you're giving something of value and there's something that they find interesting. So Lo-Fi Girl, who's a fan of Lo-Fi Girl? Yeah, a little bit here and there. Okay, maybe not. Maybe this is not the crowd, but I suggest you put it on. Lo-Fi Girl is the most zen and niche community online. It's a YouTube channel that plays relaxing music on top of very simple manga-style animations. I live in Tokyo. Our office is in Yokohama, Japan, so obviously manga is part of my everyday life. But we actually did this ad in the US, and then it was kind of picked up around the world. What we discovered is that on this YouTube channel, this Lo-Fi Girl content, they had almost a 3-time more likely propensity to be interested in electric vehicles. So that insight is what ended up kind of helping us to get to developing a 4-hour ad. So we wanted to craft a message to really fight range anxiety. When it comes to electric vehicles, this is a big barrier. People don't want to get stuck. They have this range anxiety. They're not sure about charging. They don't want to get stuck somewhere. So we wanted to create this ad that ran, again, for the same amount of time and equate that to what one charge could provide. And I think that's the thing. You could barely tell that it was an ad. This is what it was. We had this. We had Easter eggs that were sprinkled throughout. Godzilla shows up. We had some billboards that had Nissan branding on it. We worked with music creators and to create a track that we had 4 different tracks that were running through that. And this creative provided this endless serenity, and that was also what the interior of the vehicle was all about. And relaxing music that promoted the Nissan Ariya that was at the center, and it was exactly what the lo-fi audience was looking for. So just a few, kind of look into the numbers. 18 million views with a massive, massive search lift. 2 million hours of this ad being watched. 2 million hours. Think about that. There are 24 hours in a day. 2 million hours of people watching this ad. And what consumers and the media saw it for what it was. And there was a lot of discussion about this ad not being an ad and how contextually relevant it was. And that's because it was served up in a relevant environment in a way that consumers wanted to engage with this type of content. And then we inserted the brand into that in a really organic, natural way. And then that takes us to another one of our global platforms, which is Formula E. So Formula E, if you're not familiar with it, it's Formula One with electric cars, essentially. It's very new. It's only been around for a few years. We were the first Japanese manufacturer to actually have a team. We had 2 podiums last weekend in Berlin, which is great. But what we really wanted to do is that we don't have a Netflix deal that's talking about this racing series. So we needed to find a different way to start to talk about this racing series and our involvement in it. And we wanted to build this fandom around the globe because the racing series goes all around the world, and we operate in over 100 countries. So as we're beginning to grow with Formula E, we also need to keep an eye on how the fan base is growing, because the fan base is getting larger and larger and larger as we hit different markets and as we start to drive more and more interest in this racing series because of people's interest in a different type of racing. So in every race that we activate, we need to find the enthusiasts. And the enthusiasts are not the standard motorsport audience, which is kind of our core. It's actually this new audience of families. And how do families get into racing, which is a really interesting marketing challenge. And we need to be clever in how we connect with them. As an example, last year, the end of the season was in London. And so we transformed a London landmark to completely celebrate the finale of the 2023 Formula E season. And this got massive amounts of buzz and organic reach and media value, et cetera, et cetera. We also are launching a fashion line and a streetwear collection, and this is an example from Portland, with upcycled materials and race gear to help celebrate what we were doing in Portland, Oregon. And then we did kind of the unthinkable. Our livery for the vehicle is actually cherry blossom, so sakura in Japanese. And it was really about trying to create that connection with where we came from in Japan, but also how we're different. This isn't the typical kind of silver car. This is actually very graphically designed by our design team, way for us to stand out on the track. And again, all of these things are starting to build this fandom. So as we grow our presence in Formula E, again, we have to continue to be more and more clever as we get more and more fans that are part of this. We just had the very first race in Tokyo at the end of March. And as an example, we created custom kimonos for each of our competitors. So we gave them some kimonos, and, and it was great to see this actually on the track in Tokyo. And I think the other thing is that what's really interesting is that motorsports can be a connector. And it's something that people really want to engage with on social media. So we wanted to take a very playful, fun, exciting, and we actually wanted to use our Formula E content as a way to really push ourselves when it comes to creativity and testing out different transitions, and honestly, just having fun and celebrating the sport and celebrating our fans.
Let him cook! I said let him!
And it's driving massive, massive reach. The Nissan brand is actually, there's higher awareness of the Nissan Formula E team than the Formula E racing series, actually. That's how much this has grown. So we're actually driving other people's interests in this racing series because of our involvement. So again, Formula E still overall, and I think you're probably still thinking like, Formula E, but how does that compare to Formula One? It's a fourth of the size. So it creates this David versus Goliath type environment and what we need to address. So again, Formula One, 1.5 billion people that are watching it. Formula E has 380 million. But we're making traction with it. And again, Nissan, the Formula E team, has higher awareness than the actual racing series itself. And so now the Formula E organization is looking to partner with us on how can we continue to drive this racing series. So data, when it's harnessed properly, lives in the service of creativity. And creative use of data drives more and more impactful messages, which will help more and more people discover us as brands. And it's going to help drive that business growth, which is ultimately what we all need to deliver on as marketers. And in a sea of data and technology inputs, it's going to be creativity that allows your message and our message to break through for better business results. Which is why at Nissan, what we are driving and what I firmly believe in is that creative is and always will be queen. Thank you.
Thank you, Allyson. That was fascinating.
Tinder, who's on Tinder?
We'll have a quick Q&A. So anyone who wants to ask a question, go to Slido/#GMW2024. Allyson, first question around your career as a female marketing leader in a traditionally male-dominated industry. What helped you smash that glass ceiling? And is there any advice you could give?
I think to me, it's, and Jonathan touched on this as well, and Jonathan and I worked together when he was at Nissan a few years ago. And I think he talked about learning. And I think for us as marketers, and I think it applies just from a human spirit standpoint, is really curiosity and wanting to learn more. I'm a very unnatural way to come into the automotive industry. My background, didn't start out the traditional way, but I was curious and I really wanted to learn about the industry. And then there was a bit of fearlessness to it. I don't take no for an answer a lot. And I think that also helps as a marketer. And I think the other thing too, especially if you're if you're an underrepresented in your larger organization, I think it's also, I deliberately tried to make sure that I didn't focus on the wrongs that happen sometimes in that situation. I wanted to focus on how I could provide value to the company, to the team. And at the end of the day, your age, your gender, your nationality, the color of your skin, when you're driving value and impact, it's not an issue. And so really driving performance.
I was intrigued to see in your CV, at some stage you were actually in charge geographically of the Saudi market, among others, and it actually coincided with the time at which the driving ban for women was lifted. Can you just share with us how that felt, what you picked up?
Yeah, I was in a global role in Japan, so I was managing all of our global markets, and Saudi Arabia is one of the markets where we operate in. And women were not allowed to drive before 2018, and they couldn't get their driver's license, so that was lifted. And then, as it was happening, I was working with the Saudi Arabian team, and I was there actually the week that women were allowed to get their driver's licenses. And it was a really impactful moment for me, one, as a marketer in automotive, but two, as a female, because I grew up in the United States. I got my license the day I turned 16. I was ready to drive. And it was I didn't understand what that was like, and it really made me realize how things are different in different parts of the world. And we did a lot of consumer research when I was there and working with the Saudi Arabia team the week that was happening. And we were doing interviews, kind of in different activations and consumer research groups, and asking what women were looking for, as this is happening. And what they were looking for is they were looking for technology in the cars that would help enable them to be more confident and better drivers. Because there was so much pressure on them from society in this moment that they didn't want to let society down. And it kind of still gives me chills, to be honest. One, it really made me realize, wow, that's so different than what my personal experience was. But two, how we, as the Nissan brand, we have all this technology in our cars for that very purpose, for us, enable more confident and capable drivers.
Nissan has been built on the value of pioneering innovation, no?
Yeah.
You're leading the marketing function in Nissan. How do you cultivate that innovation spirit?
I think the biggest thing is curiosity. And I think we, as a company, we were founded in this idea of daring to do what others don't do. Compared to some of the other Japanese manufacturers, we were small, we were a challenger. We wanted to be a very different type of company, and that comes through in how we innovate, how we use creative to problem solve. And so I think, we want to apply that pioneering spirit and that dare to do what others don't in how we address whatever the challenges are. And there are a ton of challenges in the automotive industry right now, but really reinforcing and challenging ourselves each time with, are we doing this differently? Are we doing this with the consumer in mind? And so it's kind of making sure that at every step of the process that we're challenging ourselves and challenging the status quo.
And specifically related to innovation, people are increasingly used to immediacy, no?
Yeah.
Thinking about platforms, about tech, etc. Innovations are being rolled out on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You guys are in an industry where you've got 5 to 10 years investment cycles. How do you reconcile that tension with consumers?
Yeah, and the biggest piece in a typical life cycle of a vehicle is actually from concepts, from the very origin of it as an idea into production is usually 7 years. That timeline is getting smaller and smaller. But and technology changes, and it changes so much over 7 years. Think about 7 years ago what the technology was. And the biggest thing is at very frequent milestones. We have kind of check-ins with consumers. Do we have the right type of technology? Then it also goes into how are we developing the vehicle platforms that we have? How are we kind of reimagining what our production facilities are. So it's a combination of how do you insert technology and the latest technology throughout the process, and how do you do that cost efficiently, obviously, but then also making sure that we have the right touch points, throughout that entire process with consumers. And I think we just announced our midterm plan a few weeks ago, and it was really about kind of reducing that time by about 30% through that process, and that's leveraging insights and technology.
We've talked a bit about Gen AI this morning.
Yes.
So share with us how you're actually looking at Gen AI and marketing at Nissan.
Yeah, to me, looking at it as an accelerator, I see it being able to, it has the ability to kind of alleviate some of the tactical transactional things that we've been doing as marketers over years and years and years, in order for us to really free ourselves up to address strategy and creativity. And so for me, it's about, similar to what Jonathan was talking about, it's that 80% that's under the water. It's not the shiny stuff, I don't think. I actually think it's that 80% under the water that can become that accelerator for us.
And the last question that we're asking to all speakers today, what would be your one piece of advice to marketers who seek to build better brands, leveraging creativity and innovation?
Focus on the customer. When you're creating great experiences for consumers, that is the end game. That's what you want, because they will stay loyal to you. I think there's this idea of experience theory, and when you create a completely new, seamless, impactful experience for consumers, they will stay with you. And so when you focus on what they're looking for, how to meet them, how to have conversations with you as a brand, they will continue to stay with you.
Thank you, Allyson. Ladies and gentlemen, Allyson Witherspoon. Thank you, Allyson.